Hello, everybody. Today we are going to see about a new chapter in Class 9, Chapter 5. Why do we fall ill? This chapter, this chapter, we are going to deal first of all with what is health and its failure. What do you mean by health? Think when you are free with any diseases, do you think are you healthy? Not actually. World Health Organization has defined what good health is. It is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being of an individual. So this is what is the definition given by WHO. It is a state of physical, mental, and social well-being of an individual, not mere absence of any disease or infirmity. So now we are going to see what are the dimensions of good health as WHO has defined. It is physical, mental, and social well-being. We are now going to see the physical dimension, mental dimension, and social dimension of good health. What do you think are the physical dimensions of health? It is proper functioning of all your body parts. Your body parts should be proper and it should be properly functioning as well. And number two, you will have to have your organ and organ system, the internal organs, to be functioning properly. Okay? Not only this, you need to be active. You need to perform all your physical activities properly. And all these are the physical dimensions of good health. Coming to mental dimensions. What are the mental dimensions of good health? It has got something to do with your mind. Calmness, peacefulness. Okay? So you will have to be happy and with good harmony. Your mental harmony is more important. Okay? And also you will have to maintain a healthy environment. You will have to move around with people and you need to have a very healthy and sound mind. Okay? And you should be free from tension, anxiety, stress. All these are mental dimensions of health. So, in other words, your mental health should be proper. You know to balance your emotions. All these are mental dimensions of good health, followed by social dimensions. So, when I say social dimensions, it refers to a person with reference to the society. What do I mean by a person with reference to the society? The way that the person behaves, the way that the person moves around with people in the society, the way that he maintains a good harmony with their friends, their relatives, their neighbors. All these are social dimensions of good health. So now we have seen the physical, mental, and social dimensions of good health as referred by WHO. Going to proceed first about what is healthy and what is disease-free condition. How do you define yourself a healthy person? The state of physical, mental, and social well-being of an individual. This definition was given by WHO. We have defined this already in the previous video. So when I say disease-free, what do I mean by disease-free? It is the state of mere absence of any diseases, mere absence of any infection or a pathogenic attack or any illness is what is called as disease-free condition, mere absence of diseases. So point number 2 gives us a clear information of how a person can be healthy. See, it refers to the individual, the physical state of the individual with respect to his environment, with respect to the environment he survives, with respect to his attitude towards the environment. So it is not that when I'm free, when I have no diseases, when I'm healthy, that would be sufficient. I need to have a healthy environment as well for me to stay healthy. So that is what you refer to it as the individual and his correlation with that of the social environment. When I say disease-free condition, it is solely dependent on the individual. If the individual keeps himself free from diseases, keeps himself away from infectious zone, this would help him to prevent from disease, any sort of illness for that matter. Third point, the individual has good health. If the individual has got good health and good immunity, yes, he can be healthy. And when a disease-free condition, the individual may have good health or a poor health. When I have poor health, I need to stay away from the zone which is already infected. I need to take care of myself. I'll have to be safe and secured. So you can be disease-free. So this is the clear-cut difference between being healthy and being disease-free. Now about the second feature that we are going to talk about is features of the disease. What do you mean by the term disease? You can actually split this term as dis-ease, which means a sort of discomfort in our body. A sort of uneasiness that you feel in your body is what is called as diseases. Okay, you may not be comfortable. You will feel some uneasiness. So, diseases are, the term disease referred to some sort of discomfort or uneasiness that is felt in our body. Followed by features of diseases. How do you detect such an uneasiness or a discomfort in your body? That is what is called as signs or symptoms of a disease. So when you go visit a doctor, he would ask for your health status. He would ask what is it that is wrong with your body. What is the change that you are feeling when you happen to have any diseases? That is what is called as signs and symptoms of a disease. But when I say signs and symptoms, there are some clear-cut difference between signs and symptoms of a disease. See, when I say signs, it is indicative of a disease. It is indicative of a particular condition or a factor where doctor would look into to confirm that this is the disease that you are affected with. That is called signs, which would be very particular for a particular disease, which would be indicative of a particular factor or a disease. But how about symptoms? Symptoms are conditions or characteristics which a person feels. If you feel like vomiting, nausea, you feel like sleeping always, the dizziness, the drowsiness that you have, those are all called symptoms. And when you say, this is the first point, and the second point is about signs. This signs are objective. It would be very much evident. It is visible, and you can actually with the quantity of signs that you have, you can actually confirm the type of diseases that is caused in a patient. But when it is symptoms, the symptoms are subjective. They are not physically visible. When you say I feel like vomiting, will I be able to feel your sense? No. That is not really visible, or that wouldn't be evident for the person who is looking after it. Okay? Example of signs are high temperature, where you can touch and feel, and a rapid increase in pulse rate, where you will be able to measure it with the help of pulse oximeter, low blood pressure, wound. So these are all signs which are very much evident for a particular type of disease. When I say symptoms, the examples are chills. When you feel like very cold, when you are shivering because of cold, nausea, a sense of vomiting, you feel like you're vomiting, okay, and shaking, shivering, dizziness, tiredness. So these are all symptoms where the patient alone can feel such things happening in his body, and it may not be visible for the doctor or the person who takes care of them. Okay, so this is the clear-cut difference between what signs and symptoms are. Signs, I repeat, are very specific, and it would be quantitative. You can measure and you will actually arrive at the particular disease properly with the help of the signs. Symptoms would be more or less common, and where the patient alone can feel such symptoms happening, which is subjective and you may not actually quantitatively measure it. What do I mean by factors? The reason, the cause of diseases. It can be classified as intrinsic factors, or otherwise we call it as internal factors, or it can also be categorized as extrinsic factors or external factors. When I say internal factors, it is about our internal system, malfunctioning of any of your body parts or your organs, or about the genetic disorders that you have inherited from your parents. It can be because of your weak immune system also. When you say external factors or extrinsic factors, it can be something outside your body. The external environment is concerned. So it is pathogen, or it can be the pollutant which causes pollution, or it can also be the unbalanced diet when you're not consuming your diet properly with all required nutrients in a required amount. That also would be a cause or the factor for the disease. Now, it is types of diseases. So we are going to discuss the various types of diseases, and it is purely based on the time period of the disease. When the disease occurs for a shorter period of time, we call those diseases as acute diseases, which would be for a very short period of time and will not have much of impact on your body. When the disease comes and leaves off from your body, it will not leave out any trace of its symptoms further. Example, common cold, diarrhea, influenza. We have yet another category of diseases based on time period, which is termed as chronic disease. The term chronic refers to a longer period. So when some diseases last for a longer period of time, you call them as chronic diseases. Example, tuberculosis, diabetes, hypertension, etc. Diseases are further classified as congenital and acquired diseases. Congenital diseases are diseases which are present right from our birth. We call it as birth defects. Say for example, hemophilia or color blindness, which are present right from the birth of an individual, which is termed as congenital. When I say acquired, the term acquired refers to the disease which is acquired by an organism during the course of his lifetime. I mean, it occurs after birth. It is not a birth defect. It is acquired after the birth and would be present during the lifetime of an individual. You further classify this acquired diseases into infectious and non-infectious diseases. See, when I say I acquire certain diseases after my life, after birth, it is that I acquire from the environment. I acquire because of the pathogenic organism that is present in the environment. I acquire because of my lifestyle, because of the prevailing environmental condition, pollution, pathogen, etc. So you can further classify this acquired diseases into infectious and non-infectious diseases. So infectious diseases are those which are caused by a pathogen. When I say non-infectious diseases, which has got no hands about a pathogen. So pathogen will not be responsible for these non-infectious diseases. So when I say infectious caused by a pathogen, then it is quite obvious that these infectious diseases are communicable, which means it can spread from one person to another. When I say non-infectious, it is not caused by a pathogen. So there is no way that it can get communicated from one person to another. If I have a non-infectious disease, it is up to me. It is because of my health condition, non-functioning of any of my body parts, or the hereditary factors that I have inherited. So all those would be responsible for non-infectious diseases, and I may not be able to communicate the same to any other person. So in such case, non-infectious diseases do not actually spread from one person to another, and hence we call it as non-communicable disease. What are infectious agents? Infectious agents are actually pathogen, which is responsible for the disease, which is causing some sort of discomfort in our body. Okay, so the pathogens are of many types. It can be broadly classified under viruses, bacteria, other than which we have fungi, helminth worms, and protozoan. So all these are pathogens or infectious agents which cause diseases. Okay, so first we are going to look about viruses. Viruses, as you all are really aware of now, as we are facing this COVID-19 situation, a pandemic. So viruses are very dangerous. They are in fact dangerous because they do not have any mechanism by itself. It is completely dependent on the host cell. They do not have any special metabolic system on its own. It is only the genetic material of the virus which takes over the control of the host cell, and with which they multiply. So now we are going to talk about the disease caused by viruses. Examples are mumps, polio, AIDS, influenza, etc. Next, about bacteria. Bacteria is also a type of pathogen which is less harm than that of viruses. These are unicellular microscopic organisms, and they are prokaryotes also, because they have a primitive nucleus. They multiply very rapidly, and the disease caused by bacteria are tuberculosis, typhoid, cholera, etc. Now we are going to talk about the next infectious agent, which is fungi. So fungi is normally multicellular in nature, and it is a eukaryote. When you look into the mode of nutrition of fungi, it is said to be saprophytic. What do you mean by the term saprophytic? It refers to an organism that feeds on dead and decaying organic matter. So where do you find dead and decaying organic matter? Normally, we have dead cells which are present on the external surface of our body. The skin cells, you have many dead cells which are formed due to pollution and due to the wear and tear that happens. So there, these fungal infections can be predominant. Okay, example of fungal infection is ringworm infection. And you know about the fungal infection, which is dandruff, which is also caused by fungi, where when you tend to develop more of dead cells on your scalp region, then there would be more dandruff that is formed. Followed by the next pathogen that we are talking about, or we are going to deal about, is helminths. Helminths worms are normally multicellular worms, and they are mostly present only in the intestinal region. So, as they are present in the intestinal region, you should understand their mode of nutrition. These are normally parasites. Parasites are organisms which would depend on their host for their nutrition. What do? They do colonize our intestinal region and absorb the nutrients from our body. Okay. Example, Ascariasis, Elephantiasis. Followed by the next type of pathogen, which is protozoan or infectious agent, protozoan, which is unicellular and eukaryotic. Examples of protozoan are malarial parasite and Kala Azar, which is caused by an organism called Leishmania. Now we are going to discuss about the different means of spread of infectious agents. What do I mean by the term means of spread? It is the means of transmission of disease. We call it as transmission just because the disease causing pathogen or the disease causing agents in the case of communicable diseases spreads from an infected person to a healthy person. So it is not that it spreads all of a sudden. There are certain agents or there are certain means by which they spread. So those are referred to as the modes of transmission, or in other words we call them as means of spread. It can also be called as modes of transmission of communicable diseases. First comes air. There are various airborne pathogens which are present, which would be surviving in air. When you have air with higher degree of humidity, the moisture content in air, they can hold some little droplets which are thrown by the patients and which may also enter the respiratory system of the healthy person, causing an infection. Such infections are pneumonial infections or common cold. Next, the means of spread with the help of water. See, there are certain water bodies where it gets contaminated with the fecal matter of the patient, or some drainage outlets may end up in a water body. So water should be safe for drinking. If it is not so, then it can cause disease. Example, cholera. There are certain other infections also. The means of spread can be through food. We also call them as foodborne infections. In such cases, when the food is not properly prepared with a good quality of water, or neither if it is not properly covered after preparation, all these are the chances where the infectious agent may survive, and that could be the mode of transmission of diseases as well. Example of such foodborne infections are amoebiasis. Okay, so the next one is through sexual contact. So this disease-causing pathogen gets transmitted from an infected person to a healthy person through sexual contact. Example, AIDS, syphilis. Followed by vector-borne infections, or the infections which are transmitted through vectors. Vectors are normally animals. It can be an animal, it can be an insect, it can be a small organism which transfers the disease-causing pathogen from an infected person to a healthy person. Say for example, in the case of malarial parasite, the vector is female Anopheles mosquito, which transfers the malarial parasite from an infected person to a healthy person. So, What are organ specific and tissue specific manifestation of diseases? Manifestation, the word manifestation refers to the symptoms or the understanding that the pathogen is still prevailing in our body. So it shows the clear signs of existence of the pathogen in our body. That is what is called as manifestation. So when you are sick, you know that there is some pathogen that is present in our body causing some sort of discomfort in our body. It may be a cough, it may be a sore throat, it may be running nose, it may be breathlessness of any sort. So all these are called manifestation of a disease. Say for example, when the manifestation is more or less related to the mode of entry of the pathogen. Say for example, it is through your nasal passage, which enters your nostrils, and the bacteria which is causing tuberculosis, which is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that enters your body through the nostrils, which is a bacterium, and its point of infection or its widespread establishment of the disease would be in their lungs region. So it affects your lungs. Followed by yet another example of infectious agents. It is a malarial parasite. Its mode of entry is through vector. The vector is female Anopheles mosquito. So this female Anopheles mosquito would drop in the malarial parasite. It injects the malarial parasite into your blood. So the target organ in this case would be your liver cells and RBC. So now you should have clearly understood what manifestation of a disease are. So it may affect an organ, say lungs. It may also affect certain tissues like liver cells and RBC, which is present in our blood, red blood corpuscles. So all these are organ specific and tissue specific manifestation of diseases. Now we are going to discuss about the principles behind treatment. Okay, now we have understood how the diseases are caused and what are the manifestation of the diseases, how to treat it. We are supposed to treat it, right? We are supposed to treat the disease and we need to stay healthy. So there are two possibilities by which you can treat the disease. Either you can reduce the effect of the disease, or you can kill the cause of the disease, kill the pathogen. How to reduce the effect of disease? You can consume medicine. See, disease can be viewed or you can feel the real nature of the disease by getting the symptoms of the disease. So when you want to reduce the effect of it, it is quite obvious that you will have to reduce the symptoms caused by it. How to reduce it? The symptoms may be fever, it may be cough, it may be diarrhea. All these are symptoms of the disease. You can take medicine so that these symptoms which are prevailing for a disease may subside. Followed by, you can take complete rest. When you give complete rest to your body, you are conserving your energy. By the way you conserve your energy, that your entire body would be concentrating on eliminating your pathogen. On that way, you are giving a boost to your immune system by giving it more energy to act upon your microorganism rather than wasting energy for any other work. So complete bed rest during infectious time would actually help you to boost up your immunity. That is why whenever you visit a doctor saying that you are ill or sick, he would ask you to take proper rest, proper sleep. It is to conserve your energy. Followed by the next principle of treatment is to kill the pathogen. How do you kill it? With the help of certain chemical substances called antibiotics. Antibiotics are chemical substances which are produced by microorganisms. Microorganisms, especially bacteria and fungi, produces antibiotics. Okay, so bacteria and fungi, there are certain species of bacteria and certain other species of fungi would produce antibiotics. So these antibiotics are normally chemicals. What do? They kill or stop the growth of pathogenic bacteria in our body. So, when you visit a doctor, he would suggest you certain antibiotics if you are not getting a proper cure from the disease. So, in that case, the antibiotics would be suggested based on the weight of your body, your age, and the nature of your disease. Okay, so you are supposed to consume antibiotics, which are chemicals that would stop or kill the pathogenic organism which is causing a disease in your body. What are the examples of antibiotics? Penicillin is an example. You have tetracycline, etc. So these are certain names of antibiotics which are normally suggested by doctors against infections. Now, there is a question. Are these antibiotics really effective against viruses? The answer would be no. Why is it not effective against viruses? Now, for this question, you need to look into the nature of viruses. Viruses are pathogens which normally depend on their host for all its activities. It is completely dependent on the host. It has got no mechanism by itself. When you take viruses, it is made up of an outer protein coat and you will have an inner genetic material present. The inner genetic material can either be a DNA or an RNA. So what do? See, the DNA or the RNA is a genetic material that is present in a virus. So this virus genetic material would get into the host cell. Once it gets into the host cell, this viral DNA will go and bind with the DNA of the host cell. Say for example, this is the host cell where it has got its own chromosome present. When this DNA is injected into it, it goes and binds with this host DNA. Once it binds with the host DNA, it takes over the entire control of the host cell and start to synthesize viral particles. Viruses by nature do not have any mechanism by itself, and hence these antibiotics will not work against viruses. When you look into the nature of antibiotics, there are two important mode of action of antibiotics. Number one is they would block the biochemical pathway of the bacterium or the pathogen. And number two, they would actually hinder cell wall synthesis. In the case of bacteria, if you take it, it is made up. The bacteria is made up of cell wall, and this antibiotics would actually stop or hinder the formation of cell wall. Thereby, they would kill the pathogenic organism. Virus has got no cell wall to hinder the cell wall synthesis. It is just made up of an outer protein coat. And in the case of biochemical pathway also, viruses do not have any biochemical pathway by itself. So you cannot go stop the biochemical pathway. In that ways, antibiotics may not be effective against viral infections. Now we are going to discuss about the next topic, which is principle of prevention. I always believe in a saying, prevention is better than cure. Instead of going in for looking forward for a medicine, for a cure, for a recovery from a disease, rather you could stay safe and you could prevent yourself from diseases, as we do right now for COVID infection, wearing mask, maintaining social distancing, avoid overcrowding region, and avoid participating in any of the activity like where you have more of people in a gathering. So all these are preventive measures that we are right now taking to prevent against COVID infection. The same way, prevention is a better reaction that you can take against infectious agents. Infectious agents nowadays are present everywhere. You need to stay safe and you need to sanitize your hands on a regular basis. There are certain general ways by which you can prevent the disease. Not only COVID, any disease for that matter. Avoid overcrowding region where you have more chances of getting airborne infections. More airborne pathogens will be present in a region where you have more of people crowd and where you have poor ventilation. Proper air circulation may not be there in that region. Please do avoid certain region. And then you need to have a neat, safe and clean drinking water where you can prevent all these waterborne infections in such cases. Followed by a clean environment always, where you may not allow water stagnation to happen, so that it may be a breeding place for mosquitoes, which acts as vectors in spreading many vector-borne pathogens, especially the malarial parasite. You are very much aware about the dengue virus which is spreading right now. Followed by, you need to have a very proper and balanced diet with all your nutritive value in your food in a right proportion. These are all certain general ways that you should take to prevent yourselves from infectious agents or any sort of infectious diseases. And there are certain other specific ways also by which you can actually prevent the disease. One such a specific way is what is called as vaccination. Vaccination is also referred to as immunization. Many deadly diseases such as smallpox, smallpox has got completely eradicated from the world because of immunization, mass immunization, and polio also. So these are certain living examples of viruses or infectious agents which has got eliminated completely by vaccination. So vaccination or immunization is an important measure that is to be taken to prevent yourself from diseases. Now we are going to talk in detail about what is vaccination. It is also called as immunization. Immunization was first identified or found by Edward Jenner. Edward Jenner found the process of immunization or vaccination against smallpox infection. Okay, so he had injected a large number of killed, you also call them as killed or attenuated strains of smallpox virus. So what he did was he injected this killed or attenuated strains in a person and who was found to be immunized, or he was found to be protected against the smallpox infection. So smallpox infection during his time was epidemic. It had a wide spread of the disease and it has taken away lives of many people during that time. And he also realized that there are certain cow maids who remained unaffected by this smallpox infection. He wanted to analyze and find out the reason behind it, and he could identify that it was because those cow maids were affected by a less virulent strain or more or less a related virus called cowpox viral infection. Okay, so they were affected by this cowpox viral infection, and he proposed that those milkmaids cow maids who were affected by this cowpox infection remained unaffected by this smallpox infection. So now this cowpox viral infection or the cowpox virus can also be used as a vaccine against this smallpox infection. So that is what was his discovery. What are we actually doing in the process of vaccination or immunization? We are actually fooling our immune system. How do we fool our immune system? You just inject the killed or attenuated strains of any microorganism or pathogenic organism. As it is killed, it is not going to cause any type of disease in your body. Rather, it would give an alert to your immune system. Your immune system will be able to produce certain memory cells based on the vaccination that is taken. So those memory cells will be present in your body when your body comes across such a pathogen for the second time. So the first time it was killed an attenuated strain, so it was not able to establish a disease in our body. When you happen to get exposed to such a pathogen for the second time, your memory cells would remember the nature of the pathogen and it will be able to produce the immune cells against it, and easily it would get rid of it. So you can stay healthy and you may not get such an infection again. So this is what is the purpose of immunization or vaccination. As per WHO norms, the vaccination or the immunization schedule would be normally given to the newborn kids as soon as they are born. You call it as immunization schedule or immunization chart, which would include many different types of vaccines such as BCG against TB, tuberculosis, Bacillus calmette-guerin is the name of the vaccine, and you have DPT, which is diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus. So all these vaccines, these are certain examples. You know about polio vaccine, and you have hepatitis vaccine also. So all these are certain examples of vaccines which are available for you to take up and protect yourselves from infectious agents.
We have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching Biophobia. Kindly do comment below if you have any doubts or clarifications regarding this session. Thank you once again.